Today, I'm going to show you how to make the Ryan's 5-frame more room nuke. What makes this nuke box different from your run-of-the-mill nuke? Why is it special? I mean, there are many nuke designs out there. Some are even made of cardboard. Why is this one different, and why should I use it? Well, as the name says, it gives the bees more room. How does it do this, and why? You may be asking yourself, how can I make my own Ryan's 5-frame more room nuke? Stick around and I'll tell you the whole process from start to finish, from cutting to assembly. So here's the box design that I decided to go with. These are my own custom sizes that gives me a little bit more room than what I got previously last year. I feel that this will allow me to have 5 frames of food and brood and extra room for, those extra wide frames and a little bit of propolis in there. This is the overall construction. So you can see these numbers associated to sizes. I could post a picture of this, or if somebody wants this in the future, I could give it to you. Then I also did plans on how to map this out per piece of plywood. So you can see here, the first one, this makes 18 sides. I cut 2 sheets of these, and each 2 sheets of plywood with these dimensions will make 18 sideboards. So that's 2 pieces of sheets there. Next, here for the bottom boards, you can squeeze those on and it'll make 20. And it'll give you just a little bit of leftover over here. And we'll get to that later. The next board, if you lay out like this, you could make 40 of these front and back pieces. You can make 40 there, and this leftover over here will allow you to make 4 additional sideboards. So because you can only make 18 there, you need 40 of those, so 18 and 18 makes you a little bit shy. You could get the 4 here. Moving on, these are the top lids. You could get 20 of them from this. So that's pretty convenient. And so those extra pieces up here from the bottom boards, you just come on down here and you could cut up your lid lips with that excess. And so the same thing happens over here when you have this bottom piece left over on your 4x8 sheet. You can take this long skinny strip and bring it on down here and make your lifting handles. So that'll give you all the pieces you need to build these nukes with 5 pieces of plywood. Normally 4 pieces of plywood would make you this number of nukes using some other plans. But like I said, this is my design that's giving me way more room, and I think it is going to be very beneficial for me this year by doing this. Far less frustrations than last year, but I'll let you guys know how it goes. So off camera, I cut out this plywood to all the dimensions that were in the specs that I made. These are all the pieces needed to make 20 nuke boxes. I just cut them all up from 5 sheets of 1/2 inch OSB, and all these pieces should go together to make 20 nuke boxes. We are going to build this 5-frame nuke box. Making it out of the OSB plywood. We're using wood glue and staples. It's a pretty basic box. Just like the sheet that was shown earlier. We'll go over this and how it's built. Alright, I always start by putting my safety gear on. Get your staple all set up. Make sure we got plenty of staples in it. Do that now. Alright, so I always start with the bottom. I'm on a pretty flat table here, but I always put the bottom down first so I have a flat surface to work on, because I'm not always doing it on a nice shop table like this. I then start with one of the end, front or back pieces and one of the side panels. What I do is I set a side panel like this and one of the front pieces like this. And what I like to do is hold them together so I can make this front edge here go smooth. And what I do is I'll just get that smooth there. Try to get this angle and this back angle so they're at a 90 degree or at least close enough. You could bend them later, but kind of just use your fingers here on the front. Feel it to make sure it's flush, and when it's ready, start sinking some staples in. You obviously want to keep your fingers clear, because if one of these staples were to shoot through, it could make for a bad day. So you always want to be careful when using power tools. There we are. That's that first seam. And now we have a flush edge here. All the staples are in. I put about 5 staples. I do double at the top here close, because this area pressing apart is going to be the main stress when you're prying with the hive tool when you have a really propolis in beehive. So that's your first angle. Sits there nice and square. That's why I like to sit it on the flat surface. Next, we'll just rotate this around and do the same thing with this next side panel. So we'll grab another side panel. We're still more or less squared up with our bottom. We'll set this here, and we'll be doing the same thing by using your fingers to make sure it's flush, and then just hold it in place and start stapling. There's that one. Now back in your view so you can see a little better. We'll take another one of these small front or back panels. Set it in like that, and it just squishes inside of these ones, the same as the other side. And we'll just do this one closest to me first. Line it up, same as the others. And now we'll rotate it a little bit so we can get this last edge. And the main thing is you're mainly just holding these together, the two pieces you're stapling. You're just holding together to get the tightest gaps that you can, and then being on this flat surface makes it so the whole box will just remain square. Because I'm sure people who have had boxes before that you try to make out of wood that's not square, it gets all wobbly, then plus when you stack them with the hives, it leaves gaps, and we're trying to eliminate all the gaps we can, because if these are starter nucs, we want those bees to have a nice sealed watertight box to enjoy their new house, their new place to live. And there we have it. So now the bottom is open, the sides are all there, the top has these notches here where this is lower than the top. The bottom here, if we flip it over, is flat the whole way across. So that's what you want to do. You go from the top where we were like this, we'll want to flip it so we're now looking at the bottom. Now we take our bottom board that it was just sitting on, set it right there. So my bottom boards are slightly wider than what this assembly is. So I want to center it and square it up with the backboard. It might be slightly oblong this way or that way, but that doesn't matter right now. We just want to make sure this backboard is flush and sink in 3 staples. All 3 of these staples I put just on the back board, nothing going up the sides yet. And that's because if you look at the front here, this one's not too bad. It's flush here and it's overhanging a little more here. Sometimes it'll be like this. It'll be so far kind of outside like that, like a trapezoid, that you'll use your force to kind of shove it like that to center it, so we get a nice square box. And so that's exactly what I'm going to do. Square it up about there, and then now these staples could go anywhere on the walls or the front. It doesn't really matter. Because once I put that first staple in just like that, the box is square, nothing no longer moves because there's a point here and 3 points over here. So I'm going to go ahead and do all the rest of these 3 sides and get them all stapled in. And there we have it. Those are stapled in. If you look at the inside, no staples are protruding, which is good. If you get 1 or 2 wily ones that kind of stick through, you could clip them off with a set of side cutters and snip those off so you don't have any steel open in the hive. The bees will probably appreciate that. And now for the last part, the side lifting handles. What these do is right here where we have our low spot, you put them right on the side like that and make them flush with the top lid. So when they're done, it'll create that nice little step on the inside for your frames to sit on. What this does is it'll strengthen up this whole side and give you something to pick the nuc up with. So I use my thumbs like this, press them on top to make sure these edges are flush, squeeze in the middle here, and you know the rest. Just like that, we'll repeat on the other side. And there we have it. And if you look, what I do is I leave a little bit of lip on one side. That's where I will drill the hole for the entrance. The back side will be nice and flush. So you'll have one smooth side and one side with a little bit of a lip. So that's the most of the construction part of it. Then comes the wood glue. Now you could glue these pieces together as you're building it. That's not a bad idea, but for time's sake, because I'm making so many, I just nail them together, or staple them together rather, and put in the glue after. This might be kind of hard to show on camera, but I go through the inner seams like this. I'll show you a little bit what I do on the lip here. I just go for these inner cracks, the vertical and the horizontal ones. Make sure there's plenty of glue in them. And then what I do is go these little cracks on the top, like that. And then this whole line right here for this shelf, I'll actually glue this whole shelf just because this is a high wear area. And if I could put some glue, it kind of glue in the ends of that particulate board, that particle board there. I figure the more support I give there, the better. And you could run your fingers in these glue lines. I usually do the tops, these corners here, and then I will run my finger, which I already got it in the cracks here, but I will run my finger to flatten this, and the glue will kind of suck into the cracks and self-level as it sits there before drying. So I then use my finger, level these out, let it get into the cracks, and then the shelf here. Kind of push that back and forth and make sure the entire top layer of the shelf is covered in glue. And you can even roll the edge just slightly. This glue will dry up and be hard, but this is what the inside looks as a finished product. You can see some of those glue lines in there. All the internal lines, all the seams internally are glued. It's not the right way of doing it. I mean, you could do it panel by panel, and if you choose to do that, that is fine. That is a good way of doing it. But for the sake of speed, this is what I'm doing. And after I do the inside, I come to the outside and I do the same thing. There's a little bit of a lip, especially on this front edge here, where I could go do 2 passes forward and back, get a nice layer of glue there. And then these sides, because the bottom is slightly bigger, there's a lip on these as well, that I could just do 2 passes, which kind of rolls it in. You could use your finger, do a line like that. That should be sealed. Plus, as this glue sits here, it will soak in to an extent to these cracks and help glue this thing together. I don't know. I could see some people getting mad about this, saying, "Oh, you should glue the panels together." Sure, if you want to do that, you know, you're building your own nucs, go for it. So there we go. And that's more or less it. I will sit this on the stack and let it dry and move on to the next. So today I'm going to build the nuc box lids. Here's what the lids will look like when they're completed. Just a simple piece of plywood with little ridges on either side. These ridges are standing up because that's the way they fit with the box size I'm making, and that's the way they fit with the staples that I have. If I were to lay these flat, it would be too small to fit where I need them, and then these staples would be too long. So this is what I'm doing, building them like this. I use the smooth side of the OSB plywood up and out. So smooth here, and smooth here. I do that so the paint will turn out nicer, plus this is the more waterproof side of the wood, and the inside will be the rougher side which the bees can use their propolis to seal, and it is not as big of a deal if for water damage, because the water should be on the outside of the box. So we're going to knock up a bunch of these lids. This is how I'm going to do it. I have a bunch of these pieces already pre-cut. What I will do is lay my pieces out like this, smooth side out, here. Take a piece of plywood that is my lid cover box, and I will get it more or less set where I need it to, and use my glue, wood glue. I use Type Bond 3. Do a line here, set this piece up while it's glued. What I'll do is I'll just center this, make sure the outside edge is where I want it. Take my nail gun, put 3 to 4 staples on each side, and the same for this side. I'm just using a cheapo staple nail gun. You could do whatever brand you want to use, and I'm using Crown staples they look like this. They're 18 gauge and they're 1 1/4 inch tall. That's what I'm using, and of course you'll want to put your eye protection on and your hearing protection on while doing this, because it will get loud. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to knock up about 20 of these, and you go ahead and just sit there and watch. Alright, let's get these holes drilled. I need to put a hole right here for the entrance. And what I use is a 3/4 inch hole saw. And I just put it on my, this one's actually on an impact, but a drill will work just fine. So let's do that. I put it right here along the bottom, as far down flush with the bottom as possible in case moisture gets in the hive. It will let the water kind of run out if it gets stuck in there. So just like that. 3/4 inch hole saw, drills the hole, knock that sawdust off, and now we have a nice low hole for the bees to come in and out of the hive. And for the next hole that needs to be drilled, and that for me is the hole for the feeder in the top lid. And I just set it on the nuke box like this. I use this kind of a hole saw. This is a 71mm hole saw, which is specifically set for using mason jar lids, the smaller lid, and it's just attached to a normal drill. So what I do is I get it ready, get it set, find the center or close to the center of the lid, and I will start the hole with the drill part and then get the cutting teeth down all the way to the wood, like so. So once I get it started like that, what I'll actually do is, you can see here, I have it cut, and it's maybe a 1/4 inch, not quite a 1/4 inch down. I will flip it over, find that hole, stick this piloting drill bit in there, and then drill the rest from this side. And the reason I do that is because if you drill it all from one side, when you go through, it'll actually, when it pushes through, it'll actually make a lot of this wood splinter out, and it makes some really jagged edges. So if you come from both sides like this, you just get a little bit of fuzz here on OSB. If you had regular wood, like sheathing or something like that, you won't get as much chip out, but this isn't bad. My bit on this one is actually a bit bent. You can see it wobble a little bit. I tried to bend it back. It's just a cheap Amazon bit. Now that I know what size I need, I'll probably just buy a nice one if I can find it. It tears up a little bit, but what's nice about this is I could take a mason jar lid, it'll fit right in here, and my jar will sit on top and form a nice little feeder for my 5-frame nuke. And there we have it, a completed 5-frame nuke. Holes are drilled, got our entrance here. You can put one of those discs that you could rotate to make it so you could let queens in, out, air in. I don't really use those. I'm fine without them for now. The hole on the top for feeding, and I'll show you kind of what that is made for. It's for a mason jar for feeding. I'll just get a basic jar like this with lid. It could be a 2-piece lid or a 1-piece lid. Doesn't matter. This one's a 1-piece. Take this magical tool that I just make with a nail. Make it stick through just a tad. So it stuck through just a little bit of a point there. What I do is I just put it over this lid like this, poke it. It'll make a hole. Make sure it goes all the way through, obviously. Okay, my nail needs a little bit more stick out. That should do it. So let's find that same hole, put it on there, poke it. Okay, that puts one teeny tiny hole in the lid, but I'll do about 5 for my nukes. Figure what? 1 for frame. Yeah, that sounds like a sound idea. So it leaves 5 little holes. I'll put it on top of the jar, and when I fill this jar full of sugar water, what I will do is fill it up. Once it's full, fill it up, get as little air in there as possible. I will flip this jar like this. You'll see 5 strings of sugar water come out, and then the vacuum inside the jar will actually hold the rest of the fluids in it, and it should sit right in there like that. So now you have your feeder set up, kind of sits in the lid, it'll sit in there fairly secure, and you're good to go for feeding your, new bees. And we'll take a look on the inside. Unpainted, glued. Oops, I still got my little plug of wood that I hole sawed off the lid. Take that out of there. I'll get the sawdust out of here, obviously. And remember, this little piece of 2x4 piece, about 3/8 inch thick piece of 2x4 that is just wood shaven down. It's 1.5 inches tall. What this does is it makes this step a little bit wider, and it leaves a little bit more room in front of this entrance. Because I did notice on a lot of my other hives, the original ones I made, that the frames will sit very close to this hole. And when they sit very close to this hole here, it could impede the bees coming in and out. And if you have like a frame that's like a trapezoid, or it's leaning a bit close to this hole, the old design I had would make the side of the frame very, very close, and it would be very close to the ground, so there was no gap under there. So by doing this, it makes a gap on this wall right here. So there's a gap there for the bees to come in and kind of walk around on this wall and go from frame to frame. And by this nuke box being taller, the height of these walls on the side are a little taller, and that means that there'll be more room on the ground. Since this hole is flush, they'll be able to walk straight in, down, flat around the bottom here, and pretty much go from any frame from the side wall here and the bottom. So, hope this helps. This is what I'm using.